Okay. So yesterday we concluded with the Rambam's opinion about the miracle of Chanukah, and then we added something within the Rambam's opinion of Chanukah, and it may have gotten a little too quick and too complicated at the end. So I just want to go over the last point we said, and then today we'll see what the spiritual meaning is, this teaching of the Rambam for all of us in our lives. You know what? This is one of those plug it in days. We don't have to plug this in. Okay. Thank you. Oh, this is great. Thank you very much.
So full service.
Full service. Okay. So, thank you. Thank you so much, Blake.
Works.
Okay. A yontiv is about the revelation of Hashem. And there are different ways Hashem reveals himself, depending on what's going on in that yontiv. In the holiday of Purim, the revelation of Hashem was in the salvation of the Jewish people. There was a war, there was a victory in war, but the various, yontiv of Dr. Bressman, the various components that brought us to the salvation of the Jewish people aren't really the yontif. That's not the revelation. Revelation is in the consequence. So on Purim, what we celebrate, the day of the yontif, is the day after the war. On Pesach, where there is a simultaneous revelation of Hashem, that the Egyptians are killed and the Jewish people are saved in the same fell swoop. Hashem, at midnight, the Egyptian firstborn are killed and the Jewish people are saved. There's a revelation of Hashem in the destruction of the Egyptians, and in the same moment, the redemption of the Jewish people. So on Pesach, the yontif is on the day of the destruction and the day of the salvation of the Jewish people. It's the same day. Because there's a revelation of Hashem in that event. And we went according to Chassidus, it's not just that it happened at the same time, but it was revelation from an infinite light of Hashem. And then that level, there is no right hand, there's no left hand. There's not that there's Hashem's sternness and justice and judgment, and we're coming from Hashem's, so to speak, left hand, and Hashem's kindness and salvation and love and salvation coming from the right hand. Rather, it's coming from the infinite light of Hashem, which is beyond the parameters of both. That's why another occasion I've explained why on Pesach it was at midnight. Midnight represents the first half of the night. It starts to get darker and darker. The second half of the night starts to get brighter. So midnight represents that which is beyond both darkness and light, but beyond revelation and concealment. That's higher than them both and combines them both. So Pesach, the yontiv, is on the day of the destruction of the Egyptians, and which is also the day of the salvation of the Jewish people. It's the same day. Now, the Alter Rebbe's opinion is, or at least the Alter Rebbe's opinion in this discourse, that the miracle of the salvation of the Jewish people, the miracle of the victory of war, let's say it like this. The victory of war happened on the 24th of Kislev. And yet we don't celebrate the 24th of Kislev, we celebrate the 25th of Kislev. It's not that we are disagreeing with the Rambam and saying that the holiday of Chanukah is not, that there is no, when we say the celebration of Chanukah is on the 25th of Kislev, even though the victory of war is on the 24th, it doesn't mean that there's no revelation of Hashem in the redemption of the Jewish people, in the victory in war. In the story of Purim, there was not such a great revelation in the victory in war because it was more natural. On Chanukah, like the Rambam says, there is a great revelation of Hashem in the victory of war, and that's what the Rambam says, celebrate the day of 25th of Kislev, because the 25th of Kislev is the day of great revelation. That's the day we won the war. So, unlike Purim, you can't celebrate on Purim. You can't celebrate the victory in war because there's no immediate and great revelation in the victory in war. On Chanukah, you can, the Rambam says, because it's a clear miracle of Hashem that we won the war. But the Alter Rebbe says that Chanukah is more associated not with the victory in war; it's what happens afterwards. It's not with the salvation of the Jewish people's bodies per se, but it's about the revelation of Hashem in the lighting the menorah. So there's one level of revelation of Hashem in the victory of war, yes, but we're not celebrating that not because it's not miraculous. On Purim it wasn't miraculous. On Chanukah it is. We're not celebrating that day according to Alter Rebbe because the victory in war is only preparation for a far greater revelation of Hashem, and that is the miracle of the menorah. So the Alter Rebbe is, so to speak, siding with the Rambam and saying that we should celebrate the day of the miracle, like on Pesach. It's just we're celebrating a different miracle. There's Dr. Bessman.
Yeah, okay.
You get it? On Chanukah, you're celebrating according to the Rambam the 25th of Kislev. That's the day of the victory of war. That's the day of revelation. The day of victory of war is a revelation because there's no way we could win that war according to nature. According to Alter Rebbe, we're also celebrating a revelation of Hashem, but not the revelation of Hashem of the victory of war. That happened on the 24th of Kislev. We're celebrating a different revelation of Hashem that happened on the 25th of Kislev, and it wasn't the salvation of Jewish people. That we would, if we were celebrating the salvation of the Jewish people, we will celebrate the 24th of Kislev. We're celebrating another miracle, the celebration of our religion, our freedom of religion. We're celebrating our freedom of our neshamas, the revelation of Hashem's salvation in the lighting the menorah, which represents the full freedom of our neshamas. So it's in sync with the Rambam in the sense that it's also on Chanukah is also a yontiv where we're celebrating the day of the revelation of the day of the salvation of the Jewish people, albeit a different salvation. Not celebrating the salvation of our bodies because that's a lesser revelation. That would happen if we were to celebrate that. That was a holiday was about. Then, since according to Alter Rebbe, the 24th of Kislev was the day of the salvation and war. We would have celebrated the 24th of Kislev. But since there's a greater revelation, the 25th, we celebrate the 25th of Kislev. We're celebrating not it's not the Yom HaMenucha. It's not the day after the war like on Purim. It's a day of a different revelation. It's the day of the revelation of Hashem in the menorah.
So Rambam's point was that that because the war was a bigger revelation, that it should have happened, that it must have happened on the 25th. That it must have happened on the 25th. Or was that who was the other one? Who was the other person?
The Rambam, the Meiri.
Yeah, Meiri. Meiri was the one who said because the greater revelation was through the
menorah.
So that's why it's on the 25th, and that's why it must have happened. The war happened the day before this one.
Right.
But Rambam's saying the greater revelation was through the war, and so that must have happened on the 25th.
Right. The Rambam says that the main holiday is about the salvation of Jewish bodies, and that's the 25th. That's the holiday celebrates. Does the Rambam disagree about the revelation of Hashem being higher in the menorah? Not necessarily disagree there's a higher revelation, but that's what the holiday is about. The holiday is about the holiday is about the salvation of Jewish bodies, like in Purim. Okay. Okay. So briefly to recap, as it applies to what we're going to discuss today. On Purim, the revelation of Hashem was in the salvation of the Jewish people. The destruction of Haman was just a way to get there. On Chanukah, the victory in war was also revelation, but not as great as a revelation of them as the way Hashem revealed himself in the miracle of the oil and the menorah. On Pesach, the revelation was even greater, so that there was an equal revelation in the destruction of the Egyptians. In the revelation of Hashem and the destruction of the Egyptians, you had the same revelation. You had the same revelation of Hashem that did both things simultaneously, because it was from a level which is beyond definition, beyond description, and beyond being relegated to one of the two parameters of the right and the left. And so on Pesach, you have both the salvation of the Jewish people and the destruction of the Egyptians happening in the same revelation.
That's why it's midnight.
That's why it's midnight. Elsewhere, the Rebbe spoke about how that's why the mitzvahs Hashem told us to do in order to bring about the revelation of the story of Pesach were the mitzvahs of Bris Milah. Bris Milah is also a covenant we make with Hashem that's beyond logic and reason. Just like Hashem went beyond, so to speak, the spiritual cosmos, Hashem also asked us to go beyond our own hierarchy in the human being, the mind, the heart, the action. First, there is ideology, then there is character, then there's behavior. So on Purim, to trigger this revelation of Hashem, which is beyond the spiritual cosmos, Hashem asks us to go beyond ourselves and to do a bris milah. A bris milah is make a covenant with Hashem of love. No matter what happens, you're always connected. That's also the mitzvah of the sacrificial Paschal lamb. The Paschal lamb is also something that in doing that mitzvah we exhibited real sacrifice, because the Egyptians worshipped the sheep. So in order for us to go take the sheep and say we're going to offer this to take your God and offer it to our God, it took a lot of not just guts, it took a lot of sacrifice, and that's what I'll never forget how Rabbi Reichik, unbelievable. Reichik said something, just stayed with you because he spoke from the heart. I never learned the Rebbe's talk about what I'm going to share with you, but I probably shared it with you before because Reichik shared it in such a way that it stayed with me. The Rebbe spoke about how the day that Hashem told us to take the Paschal lamb was the 10th of Nisan. And the number 10 is significant because 10 is equal to the Hebrew letter Yud, which is the first letter of Hashem's name, and represents the highest and deepest part of the neshama. And that's why you'll notice on Shabbos, when we say the Hoidul Hashem Kito Kil Chasto, you look over there, you'll see that the name of Hashem is spelled out. It's when Shulchan Aruch says it's supposed to concentrate on the letter Yud, and you get to say the first couple, and then the letter Hey, the second couple. But the letter Yud is actually positioned at the words. He annihilated the Egyptians with their firstborn. And it's not only discussing that verse about how Hashem killing the firstborn, it's about how when the firstborn Egyptians heard that the Jewish people were saying, hey, we're going to offer your God to our God because God's going to say the Jewish people is going to kill the firstborn. The Egyptians were so frightened, the Egyptian firstborn were so frightened that they made a lot of civil war in Egypt. And there was a lot of, because they were really touched deeply by what the Jewish people had said. And the reason they were touched so deeply was because the Jewish people were talking from the Yud. It was the day of the 10th of Nisan, the day when the Yud of the Neshama was revealed. And therefore it touched the Egyptians also, and it transformed them to realize that Hashem is real, and that they better get rid of this Pharaoh who's going to, whose actions are going to lead to their demise. So that the revelation of Hashem beyond all limitations at midnight on Pesach was brought about through our sacrifice and saying to Hashem, we're going to bring this, we're going to stand up to our Egyptian oppressors and say to them, we're not afraid of them to do your mitzvah. That took sacrifice. So both the mitzvah of Milah and the mitzvah of the Paschal Lamb require this level of devotion to Hashem beyond the logic and reason. And that's why it triggered this midnight-like revelation, which again is equal both in destroying the firstborn of the Egyptians and saving the Jewish people at the same time, unlike on Purim where there's two different things that are happening, and on Chanukah where there are two different things that are happening. On Purim, there is first some natural actions that happen that lead to our salvation the next day, and we're celebrating the salvation that occurs as a consequence. And on Chanukah, where there are two levels of revelation. First, there's a revelation of Hashem in the destruction of our enemies on day one. And that's also something which is worth celebrating. Just as a greater celebration, day two, on the 25th of Kislev, according to Miri, where we're celebrating them in a high revelation. And there's Pesach, where you have them both happening at the same time in the same event, and it's because of something which is infinite. Okay, so what does that have to do with us? You could turn off Dun and Bradstreet now. We're talking about you and I now. Let's go. L'chaim. Okay, so everything that we learn about in the Torah has a relevance to us. There are, in our lives also, there are three ways that Hashem asks us to turn away from evil and do good. There are three different methods. One method is like this. A person makes an effort to remove the evil within himself so that he should be an appropriate vessel, that the Shekhinah can rest in him. So why is he trying to get rid of the evil in himself? His focus is, I want that Hashem's light should be able to shine in me. In our morning prayers, we just said, let our mouths, that the Torah be sweet in our mouths. One interpretation of that is that the Torah shouldn't mind being in our mouth. Our mouth should be a place which is clean, that the Torah should enjoy being there. So just like when you want to prepare a place for a king, you have to clean it out first. Before you bring in all the king's furniture and ornaments, you have to first get rid of all the negative stuff. So too, in order to be able, that our mitzvahs should be able to bring the light of Hashem in us, we should feel the light of Hashem in our mitzvahs. Step one is to get rid of the negative stuff. So that's one way we could look at getting rid of the negative. It's preparation to bringing in the positive later. A higher, that's sort of like the story of Purim, where we're getting rid of our enemies, and later on we are saved, and our salvation is celebrated the next day. It's not about the destruction of the enemies per se, that we're celebrating the holiday. The destruction of our enemies is just like cleaning the chametz to get to the celebration the next day. We're getting rid of the negative because we want to be a vessel for the light of Hashem. Another higher level in this focus of getting rid of the negative is when a person is not in need of a deep cleaning to be able to be a vessel for Hashem's light, because he's already a clean vessel. Now he still has a need to subjugate himself to Hashem, because there is a value in serving Hashem in a way that challenges our animal soul, bringing our animal soul out of its comfort zone per se, intrinsically, without talking about what that will do for without being dirty. Let's say we're pure and clear and we're able to receive the light of Hashem in mitzvahs. The very fact that we're an eye still obstructs the light of the Shekhinah being in us too much. So because Hashem can only rest in something which is nullified to him. So it's specifically when we subjugate ourselves to Hashem and we go beyond our comfort zone, which is it's not getting rid of something negative specifically. In the first model, we're getting rid of negative things in ourselves. We're not saying Lashon Hara, we're not doing bad things, because we want to be able to be a place that Hashem's mitzvahs could be comfortable. In the second model, that's already taken care of. But we're doing something that is involved, something which addresses the negativity of our animal soul, its arrogance, its sense of self. And we are challenging its comfort zone, and Hashem is asking us to go beyond our whims and wants to do what He wants. That activity of challenging our comfort zone makes us more of a vessel for the light of Hashem. There's something that's accomplished by getting rid of the negative. And the Futafas was once talking about Reb Chaim Marazov. Reb Chaim Marazov and a friend of his, it was Chachafigin, I don't remember. They made a pact between each other, him and his friend, that they would share all the machshavas zaros to each other. any kind of negative thought they had, they would share with each other. So Ramendel was commenting, he was forringing, and I don't know if this was people preparing to travel to the Rebbe or not. The Rendel Futafas, that was his thing, traveling to the Rebbe. He always spoke about that. So he said, and when you travel to the Rebbe, you have to prepare. Because if you don't prepare, then the Rebbe has to first get rid of all the negative things before he can give you anything. So he said, for example, if you imagine having a friend, that you're able to share with this friend all the negative thoughts you have in your head, and imagine what that does for you, how that cleanses you. So there is cleansing ourselves from actual averis. That's in model 1, getting rid of the negative things, clean out the dirt so that the king's vessels can be brought in, so the mitzvahs can then shine in us. And there's a higher level of getting rid of the negative, not getting rid of anything negative specifically, but just challenging the comfort zone of the animal soul and making the animal soul go beyond its eye. I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel that on a day that I wake up a little earlier and my animal soul is a little more annoyed, I find that my davening is a little better. I find it's better because the animal soul is it's been pushed aside a little bit. It makes more room for Hashem. It's when you annoy the animal soul, it allows Hashem's kedusha to rest in you more. The very fact that you're an I and you're a me and I, so then Hashem's kedusha can't rest in you in a perfect way. Then there is a higher. So that's the second model is like the holiday of Chanukah, according to the Rambam, where there's a revelation of Hashem in the victory of war itself. There's a revelation of Hashem that's achieved. It's not that there's step 1, get rid of the negative so Hashem's light can shine. It's more like in the activity itself of subduing evil, you are able to have the kedusha of Hashem as well. It says in Tanya, before we go to number 3, it says in Tanya that it says in the Tanya that when a person subdues the negative, his desires, he does what Hashem wants and goes beyond his wills, and he does what Hashem wants. The Alter Rebbe says you receive the kedusha of Hashem upon yourself, you become holier, and that gives you tremendous strength to serve Hashem. So you're receiving the Shechina already just by going beyond your desires, just by doing something that you don't want to do. There's already Shechina there.
It's like nature pours a vacuum, so you take out the negativity, you are flooded by kedusha.
Exactly. So there's some kedusha there, and there's a greater kedusha now in your mitzvahs. Rabbi Hillel Partra used to say that all the reason he fights with his body so much, he goes beyond his nature so much, is because he wants Avad Chassidus will resonate. He wants that when he learns something in Chassidus, it should penetrate him. He wants that the light of Hashem should go into him when he learns Chassidus. So his purpose in going beyond his comfort zone was to get something more. So there's something achieved already by going beyond your comfort zone itself. That you're already a vessel for Hashem's light because you left your eye. That's already done. You've already done something. Not for the faint of heart, but Ramendel Futafas was once asked, should I dance on Simchas Torah and then wake up late for Shema the next day? Or should I go to sleep early and not dance so I could say Shema on time? So Ramendel Futafas responded, you should dance, and if you wake up late for Shema, the Shema that you won't say will atone for the Shema's that you've said. What he meant was not that you have to atone for saying Shema, but that there's something of Kedusha that will rest in you that you never got before by saying Shema. The fact that you wake up, you missed Shema, Chas v'shalom, we shouldn't do that. But there's something that does, that saying Shema cannot do. Okay, if I left you confused, that's where I want you to be. Don't miss Shema, number 1. Okay, model number 3. Now, model number 3 is like in the story of Passover, where we have both things happening at the same time, simultaneously, in the same thing. Not just like in the story of Chanukah, where there's one revelation accomplished by winning the war, by the Iskafia, by challenging the animal soul. And then there's another revelation afterwards in the, as Rabbi Hillel Partra said, by learning another Vart Chassidus, now he was able to appreciate it more. The mitzvahs that we do after we challenge our animal soul, or if I was right when I was saying about davening better, the davening is now better because I challenged my animal soul. So that's 2 different things happening 2 different times. One by subduing your animal soul, and then a second high revelation that happens afterwards. Then there is the story of Pesach where we have them both at the same time. Even when a person is clean from all kinds of negative, from any trace of negativity, and he is subduing his animal soul, he doesn't have this arrogance, doesn't have the sense of self. There's still, however, a difference between doing the right thing and stopping yourself from doing the wrong thing. My grandfather, Rabbi Fogelman, different things he wanted me to do when I was a young yeshiva student, things that he noticed, there's some things I like to do and things I don't like to do. He says, if something's not kedusha b'goli, if something's not openly a holy thing, you don't like doing it, don't you? So, and he was right. Like he asked me to clean up the garbage, and it wasn't as fun as like, oh, go to Clark University and go put on film with someone. That was much better. Anyways, so it's possible that a person is clean from all sin, and it's possible that he's also challenging his animal soul and he's forcing himself to serve Hashem beyond his limits. But he feels a difference between when Hashem tells him to do something or Hashem tells him not to do something. He feels, oh, in this I feel the kedusha of Hashem. And in this, when I have to push away something negative, I have to close my ears from lashon hara. I'm feeling I don't want to do something that's going to prevent the Shekhinah from being here. This is something which will, if I go put on tefillin, I feel the Shekhinah shining in me. If I don't do this, I feel that I'm not doing something that might prevent the Shekhinah from coming in. So I feel differently when I'm engaged in turning away from evil than when I'm actively bringing Hashem Shekhinah upon myself. I feel that the one is different than the other. One I'm engaged in pushing away the negative. One I'm engaged in bringing in the positive. But there's a higher level of service of Hashem where a person's so devoted to Hashem that he doesn't feel so much the various things Hashem is telling him to do. He doesn't feel so much whether Hashem is asking to take out the garbage, let's say, or Hashem is asking to put on tefillin. Like Rabbi Kiva said, that when Hashem gave us the Torah, Hashem gave us commandments that were positive, honor your father and mother. And Hashem gave us commandments that were negative, don't serve idols. Oh, what's machter? Guess where I'm going today? I'm going today to your hometown.
Oh, okay. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say hello. How's it going?
Baruch Hashem. So Rabbi Kiva said that when Hashem gave us the mitzvahs of thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, we answered the same words as when Hashem gave us the mitzvahs of honor your father and mother. Hashem says honor your father and mother, we said yes. When Hashem said don't kill, don't steal, we also said yes. Why did we say yes? Because we weren't interested in whether this was a positive thing or was a negative thing. We were just interested in the will of Hashem. Didn't matter. Hear this, Ma'aseh Yonatan. I didn't even see this. Someone shared this with me. He saw two chassidim, older chassidim. They meet in 770, and they haven't seen each other for a while. And one of them begins a verse in Tanya, a sentence in Tanya. The Alter writes in Tanya in chapter 30, talking about humility. And the Alter says that it doesn't matter whether Hashem asks, just because you find that you're doing better in mitzvahs than someone else, another person is doing far worse in abstaining from evil, and they're doing lots of evil things. But the Alter says, are you really trying as hard and you're doing mitzvahs as they are in abstaining from evil? It could be they're doing a lot worse physically and doing a lot more sins and a lot less mitzvahs, but it could be that the challenges that they have are a lot greater, the education they have is a lot less. And the author says there's these words. What's the difference whether you're turning away from evil or you're doing good? It's what's the between whether you're turning away from evil or doing good? Both are the mitzvahs of the Holy King. It doesn't matter. So one chassid starts the sentence. He sees other guys like, what's the difference? Turning away from evil, turning away from good. Other chassid answered, it's all the mitzvahs of Hashem Nehag. It was a scene. The scene represents, the scene is about, it doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? Because if you're devoted to the Eibishter, it doesn't matter if he's asking you to take out the garbage, he's asking you to put on film, because you're interested in him. And it doesn't matter, and there's no sense of you at all. That's at the holiday of Pesach, where you have the salvation of the Jewish people and the destruction of the Egyptians in the same revelation. There's no difference to you whether Hashem is asking you to do something that that to stop from hearing Lashon Hara, or he's asking to put on tefillin, what you hear is Hashem, and therefore you say yes to putting on tefillin, and yes to not saying Lashon Hara, because you're not hearing the specifics. Or as Reuven Dunin, when he was in Yichidus by the Rebbe, they once told him, do A, B, and C because. And he told the Rebbe, don't tell me why. I don't want to do it because I understand it. I want to do it because the Rebbe said to do it. L'chaim, l'chaim. Freilich and Chanukah.